August 16, 1977, the Louisiana Superdome. Elvis Presley walks onto stage for what nobody knows will be remembered as one of the most powerful moments in rock and roll history. 50,000 voices scream his name. The lights blaze. The band strikes the opening chord. And then, nothing. Elvis stands completely still. 10 seconds pass. 20. 30. The music fades. Confusion ripples through the crowd. Something is wrong. The king of rock and roll has frozen, and what happens next will leave everyone in tears. Elvis hadn't wanted to do the show. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had pushed him into it despite the warnings from his personal physician. The tour had been relentless 40 cities in 60 days. His body was exhausted, his spirit even more so. At 42 years old, Elvis felt like he was carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes on his shoulders. Backstage, his longtime friend Red West had noticed the tremor in Elvis's hands as he adjusted his iconic white jumpsuit, encrusted with golden eagles and American symbolism. "You don't have to do this tonight, E," Red had said quietly. But Elvis just shook his head. "Those people out there? They came to see the king. I can't let them down." The walk from the dressing room to the stage had felt like walking through water. Each step required conscious effort. His vision blurred at the edges. The roar of the crowd, the familiar sound that had once electrified him, now felt like pressure crushing down from all sides. But he smiled. He always smiled for them. When he stepped into the spotlight, the wall of sound hit him like a physical force. 50,000 people, all there for him, all expecting magic, all wanting the Elvis they remembered from the Ed Sullivan Show, from the '68 comeback special, from Hawaii. They wanted the hip-swiveling, barrier-breaking revolutionary who had changed music forever. The band started C.C. Rider, his traditional opening number. Elvis grabbed the microphone. He opened his mouth to sing, and then it happened. The panic attack slammed into him like a freight train. His chest tightened. His breathing became shallow. The stage lights seemed to multiply and spin. The faces in the front row blurred into a sea of expectation and judgment. His body simply stopped responding to his commands. He stood there, frozen, trapped inside his own mind, while 50,000 people watched and waited. The music continued for a few bars before the band realized something was terribly wrong. The conductor looked back, confused. The backup singers exchanged worried glances. And Elvis stood motionless at center stage, gripping the microphone stand like it was the only thing keeping him anchored to reality. The music died. An eerie silence fell over the Superdome, sound so rare in that massive space that it felt almost sacred. 50,000 people held their collective breath. This wasn't part of the show. This was something else entirely. Something real. Something vulnerable. In the front row, a woman named Sarah Martinez clutched her daughter's hand. They had driven 11 hours from San Antonio to be here. Elvis's music had gotten Sarah through her husband's death in Vietnam. His voice on the radio had been her companion through the darkest nights. Now, seeing her hero struggling, tears began streaming down her face. The security guards near the stage started moving toward the stairs, ready to intervene. The promoter, in the wings, was frantically gesturing, trying to figure out what to do. Should they drop the curtain? Call for medical help? How do you handle it when a legend breaks down in front of the world? But then something extraordinary happened. It started with one person, a young man in section 104, about halfway up the arena. He began to clap. Not applause, just a slow, steady, rhythmic clap. Beat, beat, a heartbeat in the silence. Within seconds, the woman next to him joined. Then the entire row. The sound rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. Section by section, row by row, the clapping spread through the Superdome. But this wasn't the thunderous applause of a performance well done. This was something different. This was support. This was love. This was 50,000 people saying, "We're here with you." And then they began to sing. Someone started with the opening lines of "Can't Help Falling in Love," Elvis's song, but now it belonged to them. Wise men say, "Only fools rush in." The voices merged and swelled, filling the massive space with a sound more beautiful than any professional performance. They sang for him, to him, with him. Elvis's eyes, which had been staring blankly into the middle distance, began to focus. Tears rolled down his cheeks, cutting tracks through his stage makeup. His chest, which had been tight and frozen, began to rise and fall with deeper breaths. The 50,000 voices wrapping around him like a warm embrace were pulling him back from the edge of whatever abyss he had been staring into. 10 minutes. That's how long Elvis stood motionless while his fans sang to him. 10 minutes that felt like an eternity and an instant all at once. Stage managers watched in awe. Musicians wiped their own tears. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Elvis Presley came back to life. His fingers, which had been white-knuckled on the microphone stand, began to relax. His shoulders, hunched and tense, started to lower. And then, as the crowd reached the chorus of "Can't Help Falling in Love" for the third time, Elvis lifted the microphone to his lips and joined them. His voice, cracked and raw and more human than it had been in years, blended with theirs. The sound that erupted from the crowd wasn't screaming or cheering. It was something more primal. It was joy and relief and connection all mixed together. They hadn't come to see a perfect performance. They had come to be close to someone who had touched their lives, and now, in his most vulnerable moment, they had been able to give something back. Elvis sang through his tears. He forgot the choreography, forgot the showmanship, forgot everything except the connection with the people in front of him. When the song ended, he spoke for the first time that night. His voice, usually so controlled and smooth, shook with emotion. I don't know what to say," he began, and 50,000 people leaned forward as one. "I came out here tonight thinking I had to be perfect for you, thinking I had to be the Elvis you remember. But you just showed me something I'd forgotten. You showed me that this," he gestured between himself and the audience, "this has always been about love. Not perfection. Just ... love." The applause was deafening, but Elvis held up his hand. "I want to thank you," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "I want to thank you for reminding me why I started doing this in the first place. It wasn't for the fame or the money or the jumpsuits." A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. "It was for this feeling right here. This connection. You and me. Together." He turned to his band. "Let's do this right." And they launched into Suspicious Minds. What happened over the next 2 hours was unlike any Elvis concert before or since. He forgot the set list. He stopped songs halfway through to tell stories. He brought people up from the audience. He laughed. He cried. He was completely, vulnerably, beautifully human. During In the Ghetto, he stopped and dedicated it to all the fans who had written him letters over the years, sharing their struggles. "Every single one of you matters," he said. "Every single story. I kept them all. I read them all. And you helped me as much as I helped you. For Are You Lonesome Tonight?" he invited Sarah Martinez and her daughter onto the stage. He sang it directly to them, and when he finished, he hugged them both and whispered something in Sarah's ear that made her sob with joy. Later, she would tell reporters he had said, "Thank you for waiting for me." The energy in the Superdome was electric, but it was a different kind of electricity than usual. It wasn't the energy of a crowd watching a superstar. It was the energy of community, of family, of people who had all shared something profound together, Elvis's band members later said it was the best they'd ever seen him perform. Not because his voice was perfect. It wasn't. Not because his movements were sharp. They weren't. But because he was present. Completely, totally present in each moment. The walls he had built around himself over years of fame and pressure had crumbled. And the real Elvis, vulnerable, grateful, deeply feeling, had emerged. When the final encore came, Elvis didn't want to leave the stage. He stood there, looking out at the 50,000 faces, trying to memorize each one. "I'll never forget this night," he said simply. "Never. You saved me tonight." "You really did." The crowd's response was a standing ovation that lasted 15 minutes. People held up lighters, creating a galaxy of small flames in the darkness. They chanted his name, not as fans worshiping an idol, but as friends celebrating someone they loved. That night in the Louisiana Superdome became legend. Bootleg recordings circulated for years, though they could never capture the true emotion of what happened. Elvis performed for another year after that night, but something had fundamentally changed. He was more open with his audiences, more willing to show vulnerability, more connected to the humanity of the moment. The fans who were there never forgot it. Many said it was the night they realized that the people we put on pedestals are just people, flawed, struggling, and beautiful in their imperfection. And when Elvis died just over a year later, those 50,000 people and the millions who heard the story understood that they had given him a final gift, the gift of being seen, truly seen, not as the king, but as Elvis. What moments of vulnerability have changed your life? Share this story with someone who needs to know that it's okay to not be perfect. Because sometimes our most broken moments create our most beautiful connections.